All right, man. We're live.
And
We're live. And go. Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
got the clap.
Yeah. So it's,
Well, I
it's,
don't know
it's
if we
funny.
want
I
to say
think
we've got
somebody,
the clap.
I think somebody, yeah, no, I don't want to say that. You can say that. I won't. But, well, here we are. It's the first recording of The Pursuit. And so we should probably maybe explain The Pursuit and then back up from there a little bit and then figure out how we got here. So The Pursuit is actually a separate podcast show, a separate show within the Inspired Way. And it's for men living a life of integrity, discipline, and valor. And it's the pursuit of, and knowing that we will never be 100% complete here on earth. However, it's the pursuit of living an integral life in all areas, because we could go, that's super broad, and we'll go there. Living, or the pursuit of being disciplined in all areas of our life, body, soul, and spirit. And then also living the pursuit of living a life of valor. And so, but yeah, before we get into all of that, that's what this is. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Well, this is your first co-host
Yeah, it is.
attempt, right? I hope I
Right.
passed the test.
Yeah, well, you're on it regardless. So I think we'll all grow together in this process. So yeah, it's different co-hosting versus just soloing it. But
Yeah.
good.
Well, and I like how this one came about. And I was just thinking about it when you were talking. It's very similar to how the council came out.
Hmm.
People have talked to me about doing a podcast. Oh, you should do a podcast. You and I have talked about doing a podcast. You have a podcast. And I like that we're doing it together for sure, because I know
Yeah.
that it's going to benefit both of us and the people that are listening. But the way it came about to leverage the platform that you've already established, you've put a lot of work into creating a lot of great content, or sharing content. It's not that you created it, but you've shared it. You've got a good following. And through our discussion, we were thinking of, okay, we want to do this, but how do we do it to the best of our ability? And I love the fact that you've allowed us to do this on the platform that you've established, and bridge that gap into creating an opportunity to share more about community, share more about masculinity in a specific way, and then allow me to be a part of that. So I think
Yeah.
it's neat, just again, and we'll get into this more later, but how the council came about is 100% the same way, that
Mm.
it just unfolded in a natural, comfortable, organic way. And here we are a year later with the council. And then here we are a year later starting this about the same time that we
Yeah.
started the council last year.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because you're right. We've always talked about doing a podcast or wanted to do a podcast. And I think there was just for me specifically, I would say I was totally game for having two separate podcasts. However, it was just the congruency of how to marry them together. And as you and I kind of discussed the options there, it did make sense to marry the two. And we'll get into kind of the specifics of that. But you're right. I think this has been one of those things that's been in the making, or at least in the thought process, for a long time. And I'm glad that we're finally here.
Yep.
So
I
hey,
agree.
and it doesn't matter, like in timing. I think of, it's like, crap, we've been talking about this for a year. Well, we can say, like, well, you just didn't take action for a year, and possibly there might be some truth in that. But at the same time, I believe in timing, and the timing is right, and things do feel like now is the right time to do it for sure. And I'm big on that as well, and that's just using that and exercising wisdom, of knowing when to pull the trigger on something.
Yeah. And you've had different people on the Inspired Way, and we've both listened to different podcasts with different people, is you can't wait till it's perfect.
Right. Yeah.
but you at least have to have some kind of groundwork to get going. And looking at some of the events that have happened over 2021 that's led us into this in just a week's time frame, where you and I have been able to give each other more time to have regular conversations of what's happened within the week, has been great. And now I feel like, even though we wanted to, we just never either, like you said earlier, had the chance or made the
Yeah.
time or made the chance to sit down and to talk through some of these things specific to the council, which then led to us being able to do this in I think, a better, more organized way, that the people that are listening to this won't be like, those dudes are all over the place. Now, we're going to be all over the place
We'll probably
anyways,
still be all over the place.
but at least we've got a core. And you mentioned it earlier, it was integrity, discipline, and
Yeah.
valor. Is we've acted on those three things, but we never had the words to help us communicate that to other people. And that's where I feel like that we're at. And that's why, again, like you said it a second ago, timing, I think, is absolutely perfect, because it's God timing. It feels right. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel forced at all. And so I know that there's going to be some really cool things and great conversations that's going to come out of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you're right. Like, having that structure, or, the direction that we're going with it, we didn't really necessarily have that at the beginning. It was just the thought and the idea of doing something together, like a podcast. And so now that we do have some sort of structure as to how we want to move forward, it feels better. It feels more congruent. Doesn't feel like we're going to be as scattered all over the place, even though at times we probably will.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
which is cool.
And it reinforces to me, if we lived in the same town,
Yeah.
it probably would have happened a lot sooner, because
Yeah.
we would have gotten together for coffee or for
Yeah.
dinner, or run together or something, and been able to process through. But that's where distance does create a challenge,
Hmm.
because you have your things here, I have my things here. You try to carve out a little bit of time, and it's easy to push people off when it's a phone call.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's like, hey, Tim, I'm coming to meet you for coffee, you pretty much just blow up everything else, because you're like,
Yeah.
I can't because I'm going to go meet
Yeah.
Tim for
Because
coffee.
it's physical. So are you saying you've
Correct.
blown me off a few times?
Oh, I'm sure I'm sure that's mutual. But it's like, things just happen, right? Phone
Yeah.
calls
Right.
happen. And because it's that, well, it's just Tim's still sitting in his office.
Yeah.
So he's got things he can do. But if I know
Sure.
you've made the effort. So where I'm going with that is that in this age of being virtual, we need to commit to the times that we've set forth. And it was just like, today is, we had a discussion yesterday. You're like, okay, here's the time that we're going through. I had the communication with my family. We're doing this today. And I literally stopped everything. And we need to look at that as men, to establish boundaries and have that standard of integrity and discipline,
Yeah.
to say, this is the
100%.
time that I've told Tim to clear out. So we both need to respect each other enough to have it. Now, see, there's just one of those rants that we just had.
Yeah.
But I think it's that pursuit, right? The pursuit's always changing of what we need to go and look for. And this is just part of it. And
Yeah.
I know this actually goes into what we're talking about, is this podcast, and where it came about is, we came to a point where we're like, we're going to put this on the calendar. This is the frequency that we're going to do it. And we need to make sure that we do it. And we're going to hold each other accountable to do it.
Yeah. And I love that, because you're right. Everything that you just mentioned, whether it's just a phone call, or whether it's a Zoom call, or whether it's in person, there still has to be some level of pursuit of having integrity, having discipline to not let things slide, and then the valor, which is the strength of mind, to bring it together and not push things off. And I think you're right. It's easier when it's kind of like just a call or whatever, and we should have that same sense of commitment, I guess, for lack of better terms, I guess, commitment to whatever we've set, whether it is just a phone call or whether it is an in-person event. So, but yeah, so like, how did we get, so how do we bring this, thing that we've created, the Mighty Warrior Council? The idea was to have its own separate podcast. And then, fast forward a year, here we are. And it's like, oh, well, we should just do a separate show of a part of the Inspired Way. And like, why would we do that? You mentioned, having the established base, having the processes in place already, yada, yada, yada. But then as I started thinking about it, it's like the Inspired Way is the pursuit of, it is the pursuit of integrity. It is the pursuit of being disciplined. It is the pursuit of being, a man of valor as we face storms, as we go through life, as we, because putting off a phone call or putting off things to another time is essentially like, I'm just going to avoid it for now, or, oh, I can just deal with it another time. And it's like, no, we need to, face those things and deal with those things right on. So the other aspect of this was the council is community, and it's all about building a community, a brotherhood, having a place, a safe place for guys to come and grow and learn, and that community in a sense of, the Inspired Way is you never see one lone buffalo going into the storm or going through life alone. As a matter of fact, I have seen this happen. I have seen a lone buffalo. I was watching like a TV show on, I think it was like Yellowstone, not the show Yellowstone, but it was on Yellowstone.
Right.
And it was showing how this buffalo got outside the herd, and this pack of wolves devoured this poor buffalo. And I think that's the key there, is that you never see a lone buffalo going into a storm. And if you do, he's going to get his lunch eaten. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and really it's the herd that goes into the storm together. And so having a group of men, having a community, having a tribe or a herd together to go through life together is much stronger. We're stronger by having a community. And so that was the other thought process behind, well, hey, this does tie in, this does work. And, the community that you and I have built, when I share about having a community, that's my community, even though I haven't mentioned it a whole lot on maybe the Inspired Way podcast. That is the community that I'm referring to. And so, and I think this is just a call to action for other men to be a part of a community. And so, so why don't we back up and explain real quick, because this is kind of more along the lines, the pursuit is the show. However, it's the base of it, and what we're about is building men and building them within a community. And that community is, as you said, a year ago, we started the Mighty Warrior Council. So let's back up to how that all came about before we kind of cruise forward.
Yeah. No. So the way I recall
Yeah.
was, you and I, we met through 3 to 7 podcasts, like so many of the friends that we have. It's a really strong body and a strong community. We met through that, and we developed a good relationship and a friendship. And you're doing your personal coaching, and I was at the time looking about getting started in something. And I had made attempts before, it just didn't feel right. So I really abandoned trying to get anything going, but it still stirred inside me because I love to help and encourage people and support people. And you came down, and we were watching the Better Man event, which is a incredible men's event that's based out of Orlando. And this was during COVID, and really at the height of COVID.
Let's back up just for a second, because I think it started, there was an idea that was sparked even prior to that in August, of where it was more on the Inspired Way side, but we all came together. I had an event here, called it the Buffalo Retreat. And it was here in the foothills of the Appalachians in South Carolina. And that was kind of that, for me, that birthing. I wanted to do something with a group of men, and pull
Sure.
some people together. And then from that, there was just a lot of, I think, a lot of ideas that was birthed and sparked in there to continue to pull guys together. And then we met, and was it November in Orlando, or was it October?
I think it was October.
Yeah, because I came back down in November or something. I can't remember. Anyway,
anyhow, I don't remember
yeah,
the exact dates, but that's where we were still kind of looking at individual paths.
yeah,
You doing the inspired way, and then me trying to do my way. Well, then we were together at the Better Man event, and where we were supposed to go in person at church. COVID eliminated that, so we did a small group in my home, and it was 12. I think it was about 8 guys, not 8,
yeah,
9 guys.
yeah,
And then watching that and having the impact and seeing just the guys in my house saying, we've got to do this more. And then that's when we both, almost kind of like in a very cliche movie moment, we looked at each other, okay, that's it, right?
mm-hmm.
This is what
Yeah.
we're meant to do. We've got to combine our forces together, because we knew if we continue to our circles overlap so dramatically, we would have been tapping into the same people, making people choose, am I going to use Tim's services or Jeff's services as well?
Yeah.
And then both of those are serving us and the people that we service, but not necessarily servicing, God and putting him first. And that's, at least for me, that's where Better Man just, it reinforced what we needed to do by putting God first, and
Mm.
then still being able to offer personal and professional development, which you and I have both studied for decades
Yeah.
on. But we also understand the importance of having God first. And then from that, that's really where we started, going back and forth, sitting outside, like, what are we going to call this thing? And then just, over a very short amount of time, then the Mighty Warrior Council popped up, and we made the decision. And that's where we acted on that pretty quickly. We
Yeah.
worked together, and then we got terrible grammar. We ended up scheduling our first free call in December to explain what the council was about, help people plan for 2022. And then we rolled into our very first call, and our first call had one guy on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we are today with 10 guys on the call. Well, 10 guys inside the council, and growing. We have some guys that have committed to 2022. So, which is exciting. We're continuing to grow. And I think that's the beautiful part about it, is seeing these guys grow through it. So before we go there though, let's define the Mighty Warrior Council, and then the council. So, because listeners will hear those two things interchangeably. But the council is actually the Brotherhood, is the paid platform that guys can be a part of, where we do live calls. We have an app that everybody kind of has forums, and we have different categories within that. The guys can communicate and converse on a daily basis. And then the live calls are every other week. And so the Mighty Warrior Council is the platform in which we're pushing out information to be a part of, or to kind of that encouragement, I guess, would be our platform of encouragement on socials and things like that. So the Mighty Warrior Council is all of that. The council is the Brotherhood, the paid Brotherhood. So, and so which is grown. We talked about the growth of it. The thing that I like about it the most is the growth in the guys that have been in the council. And I think that's the pursuit, right, of being disciplined enough throughout that process for those guys to stay in it and or been there, some of them close to a year now, to where they've actually seen some growth and putting in the work. When we talk about discipline, that's really, putting in the work, and they've done that.
Yeah. And we had our final call for the year. It was good because we asked for feedback, and the majority, right? I would say every single one of them, the biggest takeaway were the connections. It was the community, which made you and I feel good because that's what it was all about.
Yeah.
So the council is not about Tim and I preaching to everybody. It's about leading and fostering community and allowing each person to share and to grow as they need to, with us giving a little push along the way. Because you have to have somebody that leads and creates structure, and that's what our role is, but we're participants as well. So it's not a didactic program that you come in and we're just going to give instruction. It's we create a framework, and then we encourage and foster, I think, in a very good way, openness where each person can share. They can ask for prayer requests, they can share personal things that they may be embarrassed to share with their buddy that they go meet at the coffee shop or have lunch with or shoot hoops with or whatever it may be. But I feel like that's what it's created. So thankful for the connections, the partners to connect deeper, so it's all around guys stepping out and being bold. These were just some of the highlights that when I look over my notes that we want to encourage. And you shared a podcast about creating a brotherhood that Ryan Mickler put together, and he said it really well because he's been in this space a lot longer than we have.
Absolutely.
Is that so many of us as men, we have connections, we've got buddies, and one of the members in the council even said, he's like, look, I've got friends that I don't see for 6 months, then I go see them again, and we just pick up right where we left off. But where's the value in that friendship? It's good to have that, but where's the connection? Where's the ability to share, to reach out? And even though I'm sure those friends would help if he needed somebody, but sometimes, and most of the time as men, we're not going to ask for help. And if you're not around somebody on a regular basis, you can't see the problems that may be underneath the surface. You have a really good episode that you talk about this with Kyle Depius, and having that opportunity where, having a regular connection, and somebody's like, man, he's just not, something's off.
Yeah.
Something's not where it should be. And if you see somebody every 6 months where you guys might enjoy each other and you catch up on your family, and then inevitably, because I do it, and you leave like, man, we got to do this more.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, it's 6 months or longer, and then you go have coffee. And so that's what these guys that are in the council right now shared with us, is how this community has really helped, and them connecting and creating friendships on the side, again, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want people to do, is to connect
100%.
outside of these biweekly calls. That has just, it's filled my heart, and it's been great to see.
Yeah, totally. And I think for me, the calls are very different than what I've ever been a part of in something similar, where I've been a part of other groups where it's typically one person, or it rotates or something like that, where they're just talking, you're taking notes, and then you go on your merry way. We structure them very differently, in the fact that, yes, we bring something, maybe a nugget that we'll share, whether it's for personal development, professional development, or whatever, and we tie it to the scripture. So it's all sound based on the scripture. However, we open it up for discussion. Like, what does that say to you guys? What is that? I think of a few calls where it was the conversations were so in depth and so amazing that it was hard to get off the call towards the end, and for me, and I know a lot of other guys have said the same thing, is A, they look forward to the calls, and B, they are fired up after the calls, which is definitely what I want, because now we're in this mode of doing, and many of these guys have done amazing things since they've been in the council and a part of the council. And and I think the part of that, just to tie into what you were saying with that other podcast that Mickler did on building a brotherhood, and it's about you showing up and you investing in each other, you investing in yourself and investing in the other guys. And that's what makes it such a strong community. That's what makes it to where these guys are like, hey, it's the community, it's the brotherhood, it's hey, like I remember some of these guys saying, this isn't easy for me. I normally typically wouldn't share this or do this, but however, and they'll share a prayer request or whatever, and they typically wouldn't reach out. And so there is that growth through it and that safety in the community that I've
Yeah.
enjoyed seeing.
Yeah. And you mentioned investment, and you and I talked about not having a paid site and
Yeah.
just creating a community. But again, and I've heard this on multiple podcasts with different guys talking about coaching, talking about community. You pay attention to what you pay for.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's so true. And that's where we decided to make that decision to charge for this, because we need people that are serious, that are willing to invest in themselves. And as men, we're quick to, like, I'm quick to whatever my son needs to help foster his football career, my daughter to foster her volleyball career, I will spend the money. But if you ask me to spend money on myself, nah, I'm good. I
Yeah.
don't need it. But that's a terrible attitude to have. And I think that we created a good price point that is extremely manageable for anyone. And we
Mm-hmm.
have people at different stages in their professional career where, the monthly amount, it's a stretch. I mean, it's truly a commitment on their part to come in and to
100%.
invest in themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what, again, to me, shows how serious the guys are that are there, that they want to get better, they want to put in the work, and they do. And that's where, when we look at those three words that we chose, and it's integrity, discipline, and valor. And we will define those in just a few minutes, but that's just something that I wanted to share, that as we're talking, that when we think about community, and you said investment, it just triggered that I wanted to remind people that are listening to this is invest in yourself. Find something that you will get an ROI on. And I feel the council, again, it's not you and I, but the
Yeah.
council as a community far exceeds the ROI that anybody would expect.
100%. 100%. And I would say, like, you and I have discussed too, like, get off of a call and we're like, dang, that call alone was worth the entry, so I think that's if guys look at it that way, like, okay, what am I getting out of this? Like, how can I grow? How can I be stretched and challenged? Because that's the whole purpose of it, is for us to iron sharpens iron with friction. And so there has to be some sort of challenge of us that puts us in a place that makes us think and really step out and do something that we haven't done before to grow. Otherwise, then we're not going anywhere. We're not growing. So I think for me, the calls have been very much like that, as to a point of like, wow, that challenges me to step up. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember one of the guys in the group says it challenges him because he knows, the other guys within the call are expecting the same of him. And so I think that's the whole part of a strong community, is you want to show up at your best because you also know that everybody else is. And so I
Yeah.
think that's that beautiful part. Well, before we get into the future of, this podcast, the future of the Mighty Warrior Council, things like that. So let's dive into the definitions: integrity, discipline, and valor, and why we came up with those three words.
Well, so we went back and forth, and we brainstormed a ton of
A bunch of
words.
words.
Yeah. But it was fun, because then it was looking up synonyms and looking up
Yeah.
antonyms, and really getting back to the basics of how can we communicate something that means a lot to us, and then reinforces what the council's all about. And so we landed on integrity, discipline, and valor. So integrity, the definition, is the state of being complete or whole, the quality of being honest and fair. Discipline is orderly or prescribed conduct or pattern of behavior. And valor is strength of mind and spirit that enables a person to encounter danger with firmness and personal bravery. And when we looked at the areas that we focus on, God first, family second, and then yourself, professional development, all those type things rolled in at 3, those 3 words resonated with both of us almost immediately. Like once we heard those words, like that's it, that's it, that's it. Because with those, whether you're talking about your spiritual life and your walk with God, you have to have integrity, you have to have discipline, and you have to have valor. Otherwise, you won't live up to the call that he's put out to us. For your family, if you don't live with integrity and you don't lead your family with discipline and you're not courageous and you don't have valor, then your family is going to miss out. They're not going to be as full as you would want them to be. And then your personal self, your career, whatever other one that you want, your physical health, whatever, you have to have integrity, you have to have discipline, and you have to have valor. And so that's why we landed on those words, because it resonates again in every aspect of no matter what you do. Because if you just take one of those words, so we'll use discipline is one, and because that's discipline equals freedom, we hear that word a lot. And it is true, because if you don't do what you say you're going to do and you don't focus on yourself completing the things you need to do, then people notice that. And you're not going to grow. And so I'll use an example for me is with my walk with God. It started simply, I'll tell you exactly how many days ago it was, but it started with just opening the Bible app and saying, okay, here's the deal. I just need to make sure that every day I'm looking at this Bible app and I'm reading a daily Bible verse. And so that was 195 weeks ago, 1,367 days ago. But it was the discipline of committing. I'm going to open this app every single day, and I'm going to start with the Bible verse that's on the front page of this app. And that discipline has now created a pattern of behavior where it's gone far beyond just reading the Bible verse that's on there. It's now going into devotions, and it was shorter devotions and then bigger devotions. And then, me and several other guys, we've gone through 365 days of reading the Bible. And so we're, not that long ago, I don't want to necessarily date the episode, but we're a week away from 2022 and us completing the Bible in 365 days. And there's been days I haven't wanted to do it because it takes, if you listen to it or read it, it's a half hour. I mean, because it's a lot of stuff. And if you don't focus on that, but I've learned so much through that discipline of reading every day. And then through that discipline has created, the confidence to be courageous about my faith, to talk more about it, because now I have confidence in the knowledge that exists. And so that's just an example. I don't want to filibuster the conversation, but those were just 2 things. If we isolate just each word individually, you have to live up to those, but then collectively, all 3 really will put you on a strong path to success.
Well, and I think something to highlight that you just mentioned was, that you committed to opening up the Bible app, even if just to read the, the verse of the day. And that may seem like, wow, that's all, or small. And it reminded me, as you were talking about that, I was out on my run yesterday, getting that training run in, and I was listening to the Rich Roll podcast, and he was talking about, it was the podcast episode at the end of the year. That's what it was. And he was highlighting different guests throughout the year. And he had a guest on earlier in the year who has ran every single day since May 15th, 2017. And he initially started it out by saying, he despised running. because it was generally punishment. He was a soccer player. And so it was always like, if you don't get this right, you guys are going to run, blah, 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 blah. So he always viewed it as punishment or something along those lines. And so he set a goal that I'm going to run. He started on May 15th, and I'm just going to run 365 days, but I'm going to only do 10 minutes a day. I'm only going to commit to 10 minutes a day, which again, is very, very, very doable. But then most would look at it and go, well, that's all? You could have ran for a half an hour or an hour, right? But for him, it was like, I know no matter what, I can get 10 minutes in. And so it had to be outside, regardless of the weather. Could not be on a treadmill or inside. If it was done inside, then that was just bonus. So he had to step outside. So I guess the point of this is regardless of the discipline, whatever, it's setting those small things to create discipline in our lives. So it's like, what is it in my life that I need, that I'm struggling with, because I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking at something grander, and I'm like, it just seems so overwhelming, versus chunking it down and just going, okay, if I want to get into a habit of reading the Bible every day, just read a Bible verse, so I like how you just mentioned it was just, even if it was just the verse for the day.
Yeah, well, and James Clear talks about that, right? It's
Yeah.
it's
Oh
that
yeah.
it's that you start, it's incremental gains. Warren
Exactly.
Buffett became a billionaire because of
Yeah.
compounding interest. And I love how James Clear puts it, is if you focus each day just to be 1% better, just 1% better, by the end of the month, you're 30% better than when you started, or
Yeah.
31%, depends on the month that you were in.
Yeah.
And that's where we do lose focus of the power that incremental gains can make. And, for instance, Goggins just the other day had a post about a science project that a teacher had, is you put a cup of water underneath a faucet and just turn it on barely enough to where it just one drip comes out. You go to bed, when you wake up, the glass will be full. It's that each drip adds to the volume of the water that's in the glass. And that's what this has done, is each drip, each movement forward adds to my progress.
Yeah.
And
100%.
as men, and this is where this community is great, because we are allowed perspective, because people are going to call you on it, because we all want to just go just 100% and just dive in. And if you're new to, we'll use the Bible again, if you're new to the faith and you say, okay, I'm going to read the Bible, and you start Genesis 1:1, you might not even make it out of Genesis, because some of that stuff with the stories are great, but it gets to the point where there is a purpose for each word, letter, verse, chapter, book in the Bible. Some of them just are really challenging to get through. And I'm still not where some of these books make a ton of sense, but if you start and you try to go through it versus just reading a verse and getting pulled in, and to allow, again, for the Holy Spirit to continue to nurture you along the way, then the devil will create frustration quickly.
Yeah.
If you're going for a run and you immediately say, okay, I've never run before, and today I'm going to commit to running a marathon. Well, yeah, you might finish, but you probably will never, ever want to run again.
Yeah. Not after that.
Yeah. If you physically are even able. But it's, I want to encourage people just to do things small and taking that first step. And that's where I feel, actually, I know the community and the council does that, is that first commitment of saying, okay, maybe I'm just going to be a consumer for the first couple of months that I'm in the council. I'll make the commitment. I'll make the investment in myself, but maybe I'm not ready to fully involve myself, and that's okay. And then just allow, through discipline of being on every call, participating
100%.
in the chats, listening, even if you just put a thumbs up, if somebody puts up a comment, it's just doing something that you're involved. You will see a change, because we've seen it in guys that before they were real quiet, and now they're leading in prayer, right? In the council. And it's a really cool thing to see, because again, I feel like it just, in the right community, people allow people to progress at their own stage while still giving them a little bit of a push.
Well, and just to bring this home, uh, a little bit is I think of a couple of guys within the community that have now since have started businesses. And prior to that, they are the ones that you had mentioned really that, it was a big step for them to join. It was a big step for them to commit monthly to this thing. However, because of their discipline to show up, their discipline to engage, it has gotten them to a place to where now they are leading in different ways. They're starting a business, they're leading in prayer, they're putting other groups together, things like that. So there's guys that have, it's really encouraged them and strengthened them and emboldened them to go out and do bigger things than what they were doing before. So, well, let's talk about, we'll dive deeper into integrity, because I have a lot of thoughts on integrity and
Sure.
discipline and valor, but that's not this episode. But let's talk about the future of the council. Like, what do we have planned for Mighty Warrior Council? And then we have an event coming up that we definitely want to hit on. So,
Well, I'll let you dive into the event, but I'll talk about the future of the
sure.
council for 2022 is, you and I, and you specifically set a really strong, scary goal.
Yeah,
And
it
and
is.
it's but I love it because it's that one that it kind of took my breath away. And it's one of those things where, in the book Chase the Lion, if you're not making goals that
Mm,
scare you or require
mhm.
spiritual heavenly intervention, then your goals aren't big enough.
Yeah.
And the one that you put out there, and I'll even let you share it, it will require God's intervention and God's hand in it. And it's exciting. And but what it'll do is, it's that old adage, if you aim for the moon, you'll still, and you don't hit your goal, you'll still fall amongst the stars, or something to that
Yeah, something
effect,
like
is
that.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
we're still going to have a really cool, successful 2022. And with that, before you share the goal,
Yeah.
is it's creating a more stability, um, a better foundation of and structure of what we're going to be covering on a quarterly basis. So that way, as men come in, they'll know exactly what we're going to cover, what we're going to talk about, because again, it's important for people to know what they can anticipate and what the focus is going to be, so they can get prepared, and then at least do some of the, if there's any, we don't do pre-work, but if there's some pre-reading or something that they wanted
Sure.
to focus on, or even go, okay, well, I've got some questions about that, then they can process things and be ready for the call. And
100%.
so you and I are going to put in the work to make sure that we create a good structure that allows people to follow. And then through that, again, as we grow, we're looking at adding additional call times. Currently, we're every other Monday at 8 p.m. And as we grow, then we'll look at adding additional times, which is great. We're looking at creating battle groups, or whatever we want to call it. But it'll be individual teams, that each one in the off calls and the off weeks that we're not calling, there's still some accountability with each other, but then also to fulfill what the guys said that they really got was a deeper connection with one another. And so we want to foster as much of that as we possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's, yeah, that big number, and honestly, that just, I don't even, it just kind of came to me. And so, but it is scary. But at the same time, as you mentioned, what I believe it does is it requires, when you put a big old goal out there that is scary, it requires you to show up. And I don't want to get to this place next year and go, oh crap, I didn't show up. I just didn't, which there's no integrity in that. There's no discipline in it, so, and there's no valor at all.
Yeah.
And so it just, the number that came to my mind was I would like for the council to be at 100, by the end of the year next year. And really the reason why, I was just kind of thinking through like the guys that have been in the group this past year, and just seeing the growth that they've had, seeing the growth that we've had, and talking to other, you know, people, whether it's even just females out there or males, and they're like, because I got some, you know, female friends that'll send me stuff and they're like, guys need this, you know, and I'm like, hey man, they do. You're right, they do. And so the more I just kind of started chewing on that and thinking about that, it was like, guys need this. They need this 100%. And I think guys coming in, and whether it is uh, to consume for a short bit, which I think that's okay, to come in, consume, find your place, but then start to contribute. And when you start to contribute, that's where it really takes off. And so, and that's with anything, any kind of group that you're a part of, or whether it's your church, your home church that you're a part of as well. And so you would get more out of it when we contribute. So, so yeah, that's the big number, is 100. And so, yeah, that requires us to be more forward thinking about it. Like, what are we going to do this month? What are we going to do next month? You know, and having a plan and executing on the plan. And so that has charged us with some things to do, to put out there. But with that comes events as well. So we have our first event coming up in March. It's March 24th through the 27th. I believe I got those dates right, something like that. And so uh, we are so basically the event is called Battle Ready event, and it's to help us equip us and prepare us for battle. We're in battle every single day. We're in battle against integrity every moment of the day, generally, right? We're in battle against discipline and valor. And so those areas, like, how do we shore up, you know, just to speak on integrity for a second, like, we'll dive deeper into this, but you know, for me, integrity is that soundness as well, not just doing what I said I was going to do. Yes, that's an aspect of it, but it's that soundness, like, you know, the chink in the armor. Do I have any chinks? Do I need to shore some things up to be ready for battle? And that's ready for battle in my own personal walk. That's in leading my family. That's in leading my community, or you know, workplace, whatever it may be. Am I sound? And so just helping guys prepare in different areas of their life, and in those three aspects. And so that's Battle Ready event. So we're going to do some stuff that really targets the physical, a good strenuous hike, which I think is good for all of us to do. So we're going to go out on a strenuous hike. But a part of that is also some soul training. There's some soul pieces to it. So it's a body, soul, and spirit aspect of training and preparing us. And so then on Saturday, that we'll have some breakout sessions, some teaching, some guy time to just build that brotherhood and sharpen each other. And then we're off and home on Sunday to back to battle. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
man.
I would encourage everybody to really pray about this one, because you mentioned the Buffalo retreat that we did 2 years ago
Yep.
now, I guess.
Yep. August
And
2020.
and it was one of those things where it was total of four of us, and the friendships that came out of that weekend, I mean, they'll last forever, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that's what's really cool about it is we did two monster hikes. We got into, dipping in a cold creek, and where a lot of enjoyment came out of was washing dishes, cooking, and sitting around the table. I mean, we were exhausted every
Yeah.
single day because you kicked our tails with those two hikes. And it was fun because we had a lot of good conversations on the trail, but it was that time that we got to come back and listen to praise music and just sit down. We didn't have
Yeah.
a lot of time, right? I mean, we had a
Yeah.
packed agenda, and it was just those times where we got to sit, enjoy each other, learn about each other's family, have some conversations. You let us in some different exercises, and like not physical exercises,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
but
More
and
mental.
yeah, mental exercises, which was really cool. And then from that has stemmed constant communication for the last 2 years with everybody. And
Yeah.
it was a weekend that I'll never forget because I had not done a lot of things that we did, and they weren't like, climbing a massive peak. One was just that slack wire
Yeah.
across the creek. And I was going, I don't know. I mean, we're only 20 minutes into this walk, and I got to now shimmy across this tightrope, this cable. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
way outside my comfort zone, Tim. And
Way outside.
you're like, what? It's a little creek and a little wire. I was like, I know, but I don't do this kind of stuff. But it was cool because
Yeah.
nobody, you get a little, you know, busting the chops, but nothing that was, ill-hearted or mean spirited. And it was
Right.
that encouragement. And then the fact that you guys saw I was very uncomfortable doing that, but it was that feeling once I got across that really helps. And I say that
Mhm.
story, and I tell that story to encourage people is, when you come to this event, you need to come to this event. As a man, this will change the trajectory, at least of your 2022, if not the rest of your life, to come and experience things that you're going to get pushed outside your comfort zone, but in a safe environment. And it's not going to be anything that you're going to
Yeah.
risk life or limb.
No.
It's just you're going to need to show up with some courage and valor to put yourself out there and
100%.
to allow yourself to be authentic with the group and have some of those moments to grow.
Well, and I think I love that because it exposes weakness in us. And for me, that's what I believe the storms do. Like when we face a situation like that, it's like, that's our storm. Like that is something that uh, exposes a weakness. Like, hey, I'll give you a perfect example and then we can move on. Yesterday on that 16 miler that I did, I come across the first creek crossing, and there's a rope that's way up there that I have to grab, and I pull it down. Well, it's just to help guide you across it, because these leaps they're not out of reach, but they're just enough to make you think about them. And they're slippery rocks. So I was just like, are you serious? Like, okay, I can do this. I got this. But what it did for me was I stood there, no joke, for a couple of minutes, just back and forth like this, and I'm like, okay, this is, I'm like, okay, okay. But to me, it was like there was an exposure of a weakness. Like, why did I not just, you know, figure it out? Like, go, okay, yep, I can easily make this. And I could. You make a big splash and you get wet, but you can make it, right? So, but why did it? So that's where I was at on the rest of the trip. Like, why did I pause so long? And that to me was that exposure of a little weakness. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that I'm exploring. So same thing for you crossing that creek, it felt like a river because it was right after a rainstorm and it was rapids going underneath us, but it wasn't a big river. So, but it's those little things, even on a challenging hike, like this incline is kicking my tail, and I'm scared to even think, can I even make it the rest of the way?
Right.
Like that's an exposure of weakness. Like, why am I, of course I can make it. It's one foot in front of the other. So anyway, I say that just because come prepared to be, to be challenged in those ways. Again, they are doable. Everything's doable, and it's all safe. That there's nothing out there that we're due that's life threatening by no means.
Yeah. And
So
what I would say is if you're listening to this and you've heard about the Battle Ready weekend and there's a little stir and a little fear in your gut, lean into that.
yeah,
I've been there. It's like, oh, well, I got to make this investment. I don't know if I can. But there's a part of you that fear is holding you back.
mm,
And we understand is if you financially can't do it, I get it. But most people, again, I think that this is priced in a place where most people can make that commitment for a
yeah,
weekend because of the growth and the return on investment that I know that you'll receive, is to really lean into it and ask yourself, just like you did before you hop to that next rock, why am I saying no to this? Like, why am I afraid to do this? And I can almost guarantee you're afraid of facing you and facing that, being that authentic self, because you've never been in an environment where it's safe, where you have other men that will be authentic first and require others to follow the courage, the valor that they lead by being authentic.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think a couple of things that why an event, why do something different? Well, two thoughts that I have for that is, one, that it allows guys who are inside the council to come have a place to be together physically in one space, under one roof.
Yeah.
There's some coolness to that, and I think that's needed. But then it's also an opening. It's an opening for other guys who are on the outside, who see the council or see the Mighty Warrior Council through social posts or whatever, or are listening to this podcast, and they're like, hey, I want to go be, it gives them an opportunity to come see what it's all about as well, and grow through the process. The other thing that I love about it is that weekend that we did together. You're right. There was so much growth out of that weekend, that the brotherhood, the bonds that were made when you go and you do something challenging together, you build this bond with each other. Two, one of the other guys that went, he's like, it radically changed his life. Radically changed his life. And I never would have thought that, and then you even said something on the trail. We were up on one of the peaks, and we were just getting ready to leave. And you said, wow, this was spiritual. And my first thought was, it is. Just being honest, I was like, it is. And so, and then I heard the Lord say, see, you just get out of the way, you create the space and get out of the way. And then it's just curating that space for him to do what he will do in each individual. And so that's what the Battle Ready event is. Yes, we're going to have some things that we do. There's going to be some, but there's also going to be space when you get outside of your normal routine, you get outside of your normal environment. It allows you to grow. It allows you to hear differently and see differently. And so that's the other aspect of it. Yes, it's to bring the brotherhood together, to bond, but it's also so that you can get outside of your own environment and grow through that. So yeah, the Battle Ready event coming spring 2020, that'll be March 22nd through the 24th through the 27th. Yeah.
Yep. 2022.
So, yep. And then I'll put the link down below in the show notes, so guys will have that as well. But
and they can go to Instagram to see the link in the bios link there tree as well. Yep. So I know we've talked about the council, we've talked about, the things that are in there. So I want to shift focus and redirect it to you on what's the pursuit. Like, what's the, here we are on a podcast. We've talked about coming together. What can people anticipate and expect to get from these episodes?
Well, I think for us, it's, again, back to the opening of this, where we talked about the pursuit. It's men living a life of integrity, discipline, and valor. And it's the pursuit of those things. It's the pursuit of living that way. And there's many aspects that make us, man, just being, having a different genitalia than women doesn't make us a man, right? It just makes us a male. But there's different aspects that make us men. And I think living a life of integrity, living a life of discipline and valor, being honorable or giving honor, showing honor to those that have gone before us, using courage. You mentioned courage already, wisdom, exercising these things in our life. And in the application of it, it's one thing to know them. Common knowledge isn't always common practice. It's one thing to know them, but it's different. Like when we start to put them into action in our lives and start to apply them in our lives. And I've said it on this podcast many, many times that maturity does not come from anything but from the acceptance of responsibility. It doesn't come with our age. It doesn't come with, oh, I'm married now, so I'm mature. Oh, I have kids now, so now I'm mature. It doesn't come from you. I was very immature as a young married man. I was very immature as a dad, but it was when I accepted the responsibilities that were upon me, that's when I chose to mature in those areas. And that's the same thing. We have a responsibility to honor. We have a responsibility to be courageous. We have a responsibility to live a life of awareness, to be aware of our emotions, to be aware of our thoughts and things like that. So for me, that's the pursuit. The pursuit is living as the man that God has created us to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's created us, to be strong, but he's also created us to be, it's kind of that, I did an episode here, which by the time this comes out, it might already be out or coming out around the same time. And that's with Undaunted Life, Kyle Thompson. And it's the exercising the lion within us, the Lion of Judah, but also the Lamb of God, and having that balance in our lives of both, because some might say, like, how do you wife's calling me. I'm gonna have to tell her I'll call her back. So it's that balance of living a life of discipline, but not being so structured that we can't be flexible either, that we can't be applicable to someone else has correction in our life. So for me, that's the pursuit.
Yeah, and it's going to be the format's going to be you and I having conversations back and forth, just like we are today. And then we're also, our goal is to have people on, other men that can help us with those avenues that you just shared, and give examples of their lives and how they've been able to act in integrity, discipline, and valor, and how community has helped them and where some of their struggles may have been. And so we're going to have elements of that in it as well. So know that it's not just going to be Tim and I always talking, but it'll be fun. I mean, I always enjoy it.
I'll say this though. Sorry to interrupt, but I'll say this, the pursuit will be more driven towards, like, okay, so what are the differences between the regular podcast show that I do versus the pursuit, presented by the Inspired Way? This is going to be very men driven, or driven towards men to pursue, right? And to pursue integrity, discipline, and valor, and all of these other things that we've mentioned just a moment ago. It's the pursuit of all of those things, and it's specifically for men, where the other one's going to be, yes, there's some men derivatives of it, but there's going to be also that could be applied to anyone. Of course, this here message could apply to anyone, but it's definitely going to be specific towards the community of men. So,
yep.
Didn't mean to interrupt your thought there.
No, that's where I was going to go, is just to encourage people to come back. We're still trying to figure out what the frequency of this is going to be, but you'll see when Tim puts these out, which one is which. We're going to number these so that way we can then refer back to them in a more simple, direct way. And then, for us, it's, as if you've listened to this one from day one, or if you're a year later and you've come back to this one because you stumbled upon the pursuit and you found us and you now wanted to go back to number one, this will be where you can start to hear the why, the foundation of the Mighty Warrior Council, of our relationship and our friendship, and where we wanted to take this. So that's one of the big purposes, so we can reference some of these, because it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a learning process, and we want to help people wherever their entry point is in the podcast, that they can come back. And if we need to refer people back to lessons that we learned and things that we've shared, then it'll be an easy way for people to come back and find.
Absolutely. And so I'll just think, you're talking about having guests on, just to throw out some names, just to call it out so we can put it out there and start believing for this, is John Eldridge. Love to have him on. Stephen Mansfield, Paul Cole. All of these men I have learned from and have studied, their work. And so I'd love to have, as a matter of fact, Paul Cole, I actually consider him a mentor. He's a really, really good friend of mine. And the other two have just learned from their books and
Mhm.
the content that they've put out there. But Paul, I think it would be amazing to have him on as well. So those three guys are really at the top of my list to have on for us to have these types of conversations with. I think it would be amazing.
Oh, I could rattle off a ton.
Oh yeah, a ton.
Yeah.
Those
And
would be
that's
my
what's
top three, but yeah.
yeah, and that's what's exciting about it is that along also we're going to have guys from the council are
Yeah.
going to come on and share their stories and the things that they've learned, because there's a ton of wisdom in this group. Again, we learn every single call, and the variety of professions and experiences and age and where different guys are in their life. It's from, guys retiring from the military after 20 plus years of service, and guys like yourself with adult children, and then other guys with very young children. And so it's just a great place that we can all learn from. And even though it's an exclusive brotherhood, we want the listeners to be able to benefit from their wisdom as well, because they may not ever encounter some of these guys other than here. And so we want to share that and encourage people and add value. Our call is to, love God first and to love your neighbor. And loving our neighbor is adding value and helping them in times that may be difficult, or doesn't have to be difficult, right? It could be that things are going pretty well. They want to just level up that much
Yeah.
more in their lives. And the information that we've gathered and that we've learned along the way and are learning along the way can help people take their lives from, here, that may be great. I know you can't see it, but from like a 6 in their life, which is pretty good, to an 8, and an 8 to a 10, just constantly looking to strive to be different. So we don't want to think that everybody that's going to listen to this is in a bad place and they need
Yeah.
help. There are going to be some of those that have those challenging times in their lives, but there's a lot of us that things are going pretty good, and we just want things to go really good. And it's that good to great.
That's the going from 10 to 11 for those who understand that reference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's the
the
Spinal Tap reference.
yeah. Well, and it's the what's the enemy of great?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Mediocrity. Yeah.
Everything's
Totally.
good. Everything's fine. And, Larry Hagner talks about that. That, when you ask another guy, it's like, how is everything? Everything's good. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not enough, right? That's not the example. That's not the example we need to set for our family, not the example we need to set for our community. We need to show them what being a warrior for God's all about, and how we can step into that, and how we can encourage one another and gain strength from one another. And it's strength in numbers. That's why there's squads. That's why there's teams. That's why there's, regardless of if you're looking in the military, if you're looking in sports, if you're looking in life, the lone wolf is a dangerous example to follow. There's nothing romantic in being a lone wolf, in my opinion. It's dangerous.
No. Well, and to your point real quick is, even in sports that are singular focused, say, i.e. Ultra running, it's just that one runner out there. However, he has a team, his crew that crew him, or a coach that coaches him, or even, like the golfer, he's out there swinging the club, but yet he has an entire team. He has coaches that are coaching him outside of that. He has a caddy who's with him, but yeah, he's the one who's hitting the ball. So I think everybody has a team. And so those are the strongest ones. But well, before we get out of here, I'll mention, so like, where can people find us? Obviously follow us on the social medias at Mighty Warrior Council. That's our handle. But also go to check out the website, mightywarriorcouncil.com. You'll find us there. When you get there, on the homepage, you'll see just kind of a welcome and an introduction to who we are, what we're doing. And then if you click on the council tab, or the button on there, it'll actually take you to an explanation of what we are about inside the council. And that was initial, we could probably tighten that up just a little bit, just because that was our initial put out, a year ago, and we've grown a little bit. We've changed things up. So definitely are fine tuning that. But you'll also see on there a blog and who we are, just kind of get to know Jeff and I and our background. But then there's a members forum that is for the council. So like if you join the council, you can actually go there online, but we also have an app that we use for all the guys to be a part of. So it correlates with the website. But that's where you can find us. Go to the mightywarriorcouncil.com, and the rest will be out there on the socials. Follow us. So
It'll be fun. I'm
it'll be a
glad
lot
we
of fun.
finally did this, and
Yeah.
I'm excited about where it's going to go from here. And it gives us a platform to share and to encourage and support, have some laughs along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Because we're going to talk about it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and talk about it all, but then also have some, like you said, some fun along the way. So I think that'll be, it's going to be fun just to kind of banter a little bit here and there and have some fun as we grow through this whole process of the next year and beyond. So anyway, cool, man.
Amen.
Anything else you wanted to add?
No, thanks everybody for listening for today. And again, like I said earlier, if you're coming back and we're a year into this thing and you started at 1, thank you for the support and following us and being interested in what we do. We both are confident that we are on the path that God wants us to be. We've stepped into this thing, and I know I'm excited, and you and I have talked about it, that you're excited as well. And it feels good. It feels really good to help encourage people. And we talked about it once before. This is our mission field.
Yeah.
And this is where we want to help other men find the priorities that we've seen, 10x our lives. And it all starts with putting God first.
Yeah, 100%. I'll just say, yeah, thanks definitely for tuning in, listening, but let us know what you like about this, maybe the direction of this as we get moving, things that you would like to hear about, maybe some challenges that you're facing as a man, and how are, whether it comes to some of the topics that we've mentioned earlier, or whether it's something else, maybe you're just struggling on how to relate to culture right now or relate to other things, or whatever it may be. Just reach out, let us know. You can just DM us on Instagram or Facebook, and then or shoot us an email, mightywarriorcouncil@gmail.com. You can send us an email, and then we can get back to you, or we can talk to you a little further, and then we can talk about the subject here. I think it'd be fun just to hear what other guys are dealing with or struggling with, and then we kind of bounce those thoughts and ideas right here, because I'm sure if you're having those same thoughts, other guys are struggling in the same area, because I have found that to be true. So, but anyway, thanks guys for tuning in. Let us know what you liked about it and what you're excited about this, the pursuit. So until next time, go out there and live the best life you can. Be integral, be disciplined, and live full of valor. I just made that up.
That works. It'll